So I want you to think of a massive systemic failure.
Like a sprawling corporate fraud scandal, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Or like a collapsed government or some completely compromised institution.
Right, the really big disasters.
Exactly. And when we picture the origins of those disasters, we usually imagine, these greedy masterminds plotting in a boardroom somewhere.
Actively deciding to just break all the rules.
Right. But neuroscientists who actually study the origins of corruption say it rarely ever starts that way.
No, it's much smaller.
Yeah, it actually begins with a single microscopic shift in a brain synapse.
It's wild to think about.
It really is. So today's deep dive is going to explore a completely different way of looking at deceit. And we're using a really fascinating philosophical and neuroscientific text to guide us through this.
Yeah, the sources we're looking at revolve around the findings of an investigator. The text actually refers to him as the time traveler.
Which is such a cool framing.
It really is. And this time traveler essentially spent years trying to figure out why corruption is so incredibly persistent across, well, pretty much every single era of human civilization.
Right, like why does it always happen?
Exactly. And the mission of our deep dive today is to fundamentally flip the script. We need to stop asking how we catch and punish corruption.
Because by then it's too late.
Right. We have to instead figure out how it physically begins inside the human brain.
And I want to stress that this matters deeply to you, the listener, because, well, you encounter these systems every single day.
Oh, absolutely. We all do.
Whether you are, navigating a difficult workplace culture or you're just trying to teach your kids right from wrong.
Or honestly, just trying to process the daily news without becoming completely cynical.
Seriously. I mean, understanding the actual biological mechanics of deception is really the only way to protect your own integrity.
It's self-defense in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Where does the breakdown actually begin?
Well, we have to zoom way, way in. I mean, down to the microscopic level.
Like inside a single human brain.
Yes. Inside one brain, making one seemingly insignificant choice. Because a culture of corruption doesn't just spontaneously generate out of nowhere.
Right. It's not an overnight thing.
Not at all. It starts as a repeated habit. The text really highlights how it almost always begins with a very small lie.
Just a tiny fabrication.
Yeah, like you tell a tiny lie to save face in a meeting. And then, maybe another one a week later.
And the guilt you felt that first time starts to fade.
Exactly. It fades to nothing.
I want to pause on that fading guilt, actually, because the text gets into the biology of why that happens. And it's far more mechanical than just someone having a failing moral compass.
Yeah, people usually think of character as this fixed, abstract trait.
Right, like you're either a good person or a bad person. But neuroscience shows us that every single time we repeat an action, our physical neural pathways actually change.
What's fascinating here is how the brain functions as this incredibly ruthless energy-saving machine.
Yeah, it hates wasting energy.
It really does. So when you tell that first lie, the cognitive load is massive. Your amygdala fires up, your heart rate increases.
You physically feel the emotional friction of guilt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you repeat the lie, the brain realizes, oh, I need to optimize this process to save energy.
Because it thinks this is just what we do now.
Right. So it initiates a biological process called myelination.
Okay, break that down for us. What is myelination?
So the brain literally wraps that specific neural circuit in myelin, which is this fatty substance.
Kind of like insulation on a wire.
Exactly like insulation on a copper wire.
Mm-hmm.
And as that insulation gets thicker, the electrical signal travels way faster and requires far less energy to execute.
So the emotional friction just drops to zero.
Yep. The brain, it doesn't judge the morality of the action at all. It only judges the efficiency.
Wow.
So it is just as happy to optimize and insulate fear or greed or deceit as it is to optimize kindness or honesty.
That is wild. I mean, it functions almost exactly like a predictive text algorithm on your phone,
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, like the first time you type an unusual word, you have to painstakingly spell it out letter by letter. But if you type it every day, the algorithm learns.
And soon you just hit one letter and it auto-completes.
Right, it auto-completes the entire word for you. So when you practice dishonesty, your brain begins to auto-complete the deceit before your conscious mind even has time to weigh the ethical implications.
You're literally hardwiring the habit.
Yeah.
Those repeated biological behaviors physically become your default setting.
Which is terrifying.
It is.
Yeah.
You are essentially practicing your way into your own identity.
Okay, I struggle with this. I really do. And I want to play devil's advocate and push back on this premise on behalf of anyone listening right now.
Sure, go for it.
If my brain is Physically altering its own wiring, like automatically insulating these circuits with myelin to optimize for whatever I do. How can anyone hold me accountable for my actions down the road?
Ah, the personal responsibility question.
Yeah. If my biology is literally driving the bus and auto-completing my decisions, doesn't that just strip away personal responsibility?
It sounds like a biological excuse.
Exactly. It sounds like you're handing people a free pass for terrible behavior. I mean, if the brain just adapts to the environment automatically, where does individual accountability fit in?
It's a really profound tension in the research. But the text argues that understanding this biological mechanism does not remove your responsibility. It actually deepens it.
Okay, how so?
Well, if you know that your brain is essentially a blank slate at birth, meaning there is no innate genetic code for embezzling funds or taking a bribe.
Right, no baby is born a corporate fraudster.
Exactly. So then you have to acknowledge that every single corrupted pathway was built by your own choices.
But wait, if the environment dictates the adaptation, aren't I just a victim of circumstance?
Only if you remain ignorant of the process.
Oh, I see.
So once you understand that every quote-unquote small lie is actively laying down permanent biological infrastructure in your head, you can no longer brush it off as a harmless mistake.
Because you know the physical damage it's doing.
Exactly. You become hyper-vigilant about those first small choices because you realize you are shaping the physical architecture of your future decision-making.
So you are the architect of your own brain.
Beautifully put, yes. An infant entering the world does not know how to rig a contract. That behavior is entirely 100% learned.
Oh, okay. But if it's just individual neuroplasticity, though, we should only ever see, like, a few isolated bad actors scattered around, right?
Just random people making poor choices.
Yeah. People who made poor architectural choices for their own brains. But why does an entire corporate department suddenly go rogue together?
Or a whole government.
Right. Why do entire governments normalize bribery all at once? We have to look at how this individual wiring spreads to millions of people simultaneously.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that brings us to the biological mechanism of social learning.
The mirror neurons, right?
Yes, specifically the mirror neuron system. This is how a culture actually takes root and spreads across a massive population.
So how do they work?
Well, mirror neurons are these specialized cells in our brains that fire not only when we perform an action ourselves, but simply when we observe someone else performing that action.
So we chemically simulate what we are seeing in real time.
Exactly. It completely bypasses the slower analytical parts of our frontal cortex.
So we aren't sitting there logically deducing, is this action right or wrong?
No, not at all. Our brains are automatically mirroring the behavior to figure out how to align with the group.
Just to fit in.
From an evolutionary standpoint, this is the fundamental way humans learn to survive in a pack. It's how infants learn to smile.
Or how they pick up the nuances of language without ever reading a textbook.
Exactly. But that survival mechanism doesn't just shut off when we enter the adult workforce.
Right, we keep mirroring.
Always. Children watch adults, employees watch their managers, citizens watch their politicians. Humans absorb the unwritten rules of their environment by absolute osmosis.
Yeah, we definitely don't rely on the employee handbook to learn how a system actually works.
Nobody reads the handbook.
No. Our mirror neurons are constantly scanning the environment, picking up the real curriculum by observing what actions actually lead to success for the people around us.
This raises an important question, though, because society has a massive blind spot here.
Oh, huge. The friction this creates is wild. We operate under this illusion that civilizations are shaped by what they preach.
Yes, we put core values on posters in the break room.
We hold mandatory ethics seminars.
We talk about integrity constantly.
But the brain doesn't care about the poster.
It really doesn't.
The mirror neurons are only paying attention to what the system actually rewards.
People adapt to incentives much, much faster than they adapt to abstract ideals.
Give me a concrete example of that.
Okay, imagine a young professional enters a new company. They see that the honest people who admit their mistakes are the ones getting passed over for promotions.
Right, they get sidelined.
But then they see a manager who blatantly manipulates the sales numbers, and that guy gets the massive bonus and all the public praise.
Wow.
Their mirror neurons register a very clear message. The brain quietly accepts that corruption is the effective survival strategy for that specific environment.
It makes me think of an electrical grid.
Oh, how so?
Well, if you have two wires, electricity doesn't care about the moral value of the wires. It just seeks the path of least resistance.
Right, it's just physics.
Yeah. So if being honest results in getting fired, that is a high resistance wire. But if lying to a client results in a promotion, that is a low resistance wire.
And the electricity is going to take the easy path.
Exactly. The system will automatically reroute the behavior of the employees toward the low resistance path, no matter how many ethics seminars you force them to attend.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the underlying test argues this is the exact moment a society begins to fracture.
Because it's exhausting. Right.
The psychological toll of trying to maintain your integrity in a system that punishes it is immense.
It really is.
I mean, if you follow every rule, you treat people fairly, and you refuse to cut corners, but you are constantly outpaced by colleagues who lie and cheat.
You inevitably hit a breaking point.
You hit a threshold, and you ask yourself the most dangerous question a citizen can ask.
Am I the fool for following the rules?
Exactly.
God, that single thought is so agonizing. Because you just feel like a sucker, you know?
You realize your integrity is functioning as a massive disadvantage in the current ecosystem.
Yeah. So what does this all mean when that starts happening at scale?
Well, when one person asks that question, it is a personal crisis of conscience. But when millions of people start asking it simultaneously,
It's a cultural catastrophe.
it is the tipping point for a civilization.
Yeah.
Once the majority of people decide they no longer want to be the fool, a massive shift occurs.
A floodgates open?
Normalized deception just cascades through the entire system. People stop trying to do the right thing and start trying to game the system just to survive.
Because the macro incentives have completely reprogrammed the societal brain.
The authorities can shout, follow the rules all they want, but if they are handing out massive rewards to the people breaking them.
The rules just become a piece of hypocritical decoration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the hypocrisy is what ultimately erodes public trust.
And that brings us to the inevitable consequence of all this normalized deception, which the source material spends a lot of time analyzing.
Right. The end result.
Yeah, like where does this cascade of rewritten neural pathways and broken incentives actually lead us?
It leads to the total destruction of the invisible foundation
Yes.
upon which every single successful civilization stands.
Trust.
Trust.
Mhm.
Without trust, everything weakens. Families, communities, institutions, nations, they all just start to crumble.
The text makes a really fascinating distinction here between physical wealth and societal health.
Oh, absolutely. Money can build skyscrapers.
It can build sprawling highways, massive factories, incredible physical infrastructure.
But no amount of wealth can replace or repair lost trust.
None. I mean,
Okay.
you can look at the richest nations on Earth, but if the citizens don't trust the courts to be fair,
Or if they don't trust the banks with their money.
or they don't trust the food supply, the wealth is completely meaningless. Society just grinds to a halt under the weight of its own paranoia.
Because everything requires more contracts, more lawyers, more surveillance, more suspicion.
The transaction costs of daily life just become unbearable.
But what the source text points out next is a really provocative critique of how humanity has historically tried to manage this decay.
I want to spend some time on this, actually, because normally we assume religion and moral philosophy are the ultimate safeguards against corruption.
Right, they're supposed to be the moral compass keeping society on track.
Yeah. But the argument presented in the dialogue is that by promising divine justice in the afterlife, these systems can sometimes create like a release valve for earthly outrage.
It can foster a surprisingly passive mindset.
Exactly. If people believe that the corrupt politician or the fraudulent CEO will eventually face ultimate cosmic punishment in the next world,
They might just tolerate rampant corruption in the here and now.
right, they think, well, the grand scales of justice will be balanced later, so the population just endures the abuse today.
It outsources the demand for justice.
That's the perfect way to put it. Instead of fixing the broken incentives in the present, society treats integrity as a test you endure solely for a reward after you die.
But the text is demanding that integrity must be the operational foundation of this life.
We have to take the burden of justice out of the hands of the universe and put it squarely back on our own shoulders right now.
Because if we just wait for divine intervention, the civilization falls apart in the meantime.
Yeah, we can't afford to wait.
This represents the ultimate paradigm shift that the time traveler investigator proposes. We have to stop asking, how do we punish the corrupt?
Because by the time you are relying on punishment, the system has already failed.
The disease has already spread. We have to shift from treating the symptoms to preventing the disease in the first place.
We must start asking, what kind of society makes corruption seem like the easiest path?
Corruption is just the fever.
Right. The actual infection is a system that has gradually taught millions of people that survival, status, and wealth matter more than integrity.
And unless we understand how that biological and cultural transformation happens,
How the neural pathways are insulated by repeated habits.
right, and how mirror neurons bypass our logic to absorb the hypocrisy of the environment.
How the electrical grid of incentives warps our behavior. Unless we understand all of that, we will just continue fighting a losing battle.
We have to actively design systems. In our workplaces, in our governments, in our homes, where doing the right thing is the path of least resistance.
We absolutely need to align what we preach with what we actually reward.
Until the low-resistance wire leads to honesty, the mirror neurons will always follow the corrupt rewards.
And those neural pathways of deception will just keep getting faster and more insulated.
Breaking this cycle requires a tremendous amount of self-awareness and active resistance.
It really comes down to actionable daily habits. It requires absolute vigilance over your own micro-decisions.
You have to pay very close attention to what your specific environment is actively rewarding.
And refusing to let your brain's predictive text algorithm go on autopilot just because everyone else is taking the shortcut.
You have to force your brain to expend the energy to take the high-resistance path of integrity.
Knowing that every single choice is an architectural decision for the future of your own mind.
It's empowering, really, but it's hard work.
It is hard work. And as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a direct challenge drawn straight from the philosophical text we explored today.
Something to really reflect on.
Take a hard look at your own life, your own workplace, your own daily habits.
We all make trade-offs.
We do, and we all find ways to justify them to ourselves. But if corruption is not a single dramatic act, but rather 1,000 small compromises wired into our biology over time,
Which compromise are you making today that you won't even notice tomorrow?
it's a haunting thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.